What's up guys, it's me Jeremy, and here in Pro Team Comps Explained, we take a look at Pro Team Comps and break it down. Today's composition is the split push comp. Let's get started. So a composition that focuses on split pushing is going to be one that evokes the 1-3-1 split push, where you have a solo pusher top and bottom, while your three other players hold the mid lane. You generate tons of pressure through your push while generally avoiding fights in order to take only objectives. A 1-4 split push is also possible, but it does not create as much pressure, and so it isn't always the best option. Your objective is then to hold out on that push for as long as possible. If a fight starts, you want to disengage it, and your allies can either rotate down, or you can just accept the fight as a loss and have your split pushers take multiple towers in exchange. So, in building this composition, you want to have 3 ranged pushers with wave clear that can defend a siege easily, and 2 duelists that will be your split pushers. You will usually want to put the duelist top, mid, or jungle. I like champions such as Lee Sin, Jax, Kha'Zix, Zed, Shyvana, or other high DPS assassins for being your duelists, as they can push down towers quickly, as well as being able to win most 1v1s versus opponents. They do a great job of solo pushing and being able to create pressure even if they have a somewhat poor early laning phase. Now, for your 3 ranged champions, I like to have an AD carry with heavy wave clear and massive range, such as Caitlyn, Tristana, or Sivir, and then get a support that can also help with the wave clearing, such as Morgana, Thresh, or Annie, and then we can play a safe mid laner that will make your wave clears as a group of 3 almost instant. Someone like Ziggs, Lux, or Lulu will make disengaging easy and make defending a siege versus a team of 4 or 5 opponents very possible. All those champions as well do a great job of being able to siege if your opponents send multiple champions to fight your solo pushers, as they can push fast as well as being able to disengage and defend. Keep in mind that the champions I listed are simply just my top picks for the composition and are not really set in stone. I didn't spend too much time coming up with them, and as long as the champion follows the guidelines given, it should do just fine. For bans, I would suggest banning Caitlyn if you're not going to pick her, as she makes defending a siege against incredibly difficult due to her massive range and reliable laning phase. Other than that, banning champions that can outduel your duelists work well, but a lot of those types of champions aren't popular enough to be worthy of a ban, such as Jax and to some extent Nasus. But just ban champions that you know your solo pushers probably will not be able to duel. And watch out for assassins as well, as they can make pushing down the middle lane as 5 versus this comp incredibly easy by giving a solid tower dive presence. Alright, now for playing this composition. As with most comps, the laning phase is pretty standard and plays out normally, since team comps don't really affect the way you play out the laning phase anyways. However, the transition out of the laning phase for the split push comp is incredibly important. When you've reached the point where you want to end the laning phase, you want to transition to a few people mid lane and then into the full split push. And if not dealt with properly, you can end up taking multiple towers from it, since a split push out of nowhere that is heavily committed to can be difficult to deal with if the team lacks coordination. Now, you need to know that there are 2 major types of split pushing, the 1-3-1 split push and the 1-4 split push. The 1-3-1 push consists of your 3 ranged teammates holding the mid tower and preventing the opponents from pushing, while your 2 duelists push the side lanes. The goal is to get an uneven ratio of players in one of the lanes, such as 4 people mid, 2 people top, or something like that. This will leave one of your lanes open for an easy push, while the other lane simply backs off for a bit or defends the opponent's push. If your opponent responds with a 1-3-1 setup as well, based on your picks, you should still come out on top in that situation too. Your goal here is always going to be to take objectives, to take towers. It is never to set up a team fight. You only want to team fight in this comp after you have gained a huge gold lead from the towers you've taken. But in general, the 1-3-1 type of push is great for taking outer and possibly inner towers down as well. Now, the 1-4 push is a bit different. This push is more about opening the lane that you sent 4 people to. So you send your strongest pusher to a solo lane in the hopes that your opponent will send 2 people. In this type of push, you want to force down the lane that you are sending those 4 people to. This type of push is a lot better for inhibitor towers, as otherwise it will be a little bit more difficult since it's easier to defend. In the 1-4 push, a team fight is actually possible, as you can have your solo laner rotate in for what may potentially be a 5v4 or 5v3 for quite a while until the opponents can catch up, so you can force flanks and dives that way. But when split pushing, you never want to fight an even team fight, unless you have a massive gold lead from your towers. Just disengage and back off before the fight even starts, and then use the fact that your opponent's devoted resources to that lane to push or apply pressure to different lanes. So because of this, you always need to be aware of what you're trying to accomplish with your split push and choose which type of push to do accordingly. And make sure that your solo lane pushers are definitely buying and using wards, as ganks on them can be devastating. All in all, just make sure to keep track of every single opponent on the map, as just one person being out of place will open up opportunities elsewhere. Even though you do want to avoid fights, that is never going to be always possible, so your split pushers knowing when to rotate in is also really important. Sometimes it's going to be best for them to rotate in and mop up a fight or set up a flank, and sometimes it's going to be much better for them to just stay in their lane and keep solo pushing. It's hard to know, but it's mostly about where the lane is and where your allies are. If you can get there quickly and the fight is close by, rotating in is probably a good idea, since it's easy to set up flanks this way. Whereas if they're far away, staying in that solo push lane will force the opponents to back after the fight anyways. So even though you messed up and your main group of people got into an unwanted fight, your solo pushers will likely be able to take 1 or 2 towers during the fight, and then the opponents will get no objectives because they need to back immediately to deal with the split pushing pressure. Also, it's good to mention that teleport abilities can work quite well too by helping the split pusher rotate in, but they are far from necessary and can make the laning phase difficult if you're not used to them. Alright, now for playing against this comp, it's really difficult if you don't know what to do, but I find that in general, if you can get a successful gank off on one of the solo pushers, and then rotate as a whole team to push down a single lane, it works quite well. The pressure is easily dealt with after you get that gank off, and then it's important to make sure that you still get objectives off of it though. The split push comp often takes down towers, so trading objectives is something you will probably end up having to do. In general, a 5-man push into one lane that you tower dive can also work quite well, but you have to do it quickly, and just be careful to not get stalled, which is what the comp is going to try to do to you. And if all else fails, out-split pushing them is something that is actually possible, and if you can do it, it's very effective. You simply just match the amount of players in each lane, and if you can win the straight up duels or defend the sieges, you might be in a good spot, since they're forced to overextend due to them pushing. In general, just make sure that your team does not get outplayed by the constant rotations. You need to stay on your toes and constantly predict what the opponents will do next, and do so in a coordinated way, as otherwise they can easily take advantage of it. My name is Jeremy, and that's it for my video on the split push composition. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out some of my others on the screen right now, or stay connected at facebook.com/gamingcurios. I'd love it if you could support me with a like, and make sure to subscribe for some more awesome content in the future if you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.